Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sara Rosette.
And I'm Jami Albright. And this week on the show we have
Sara Thompson.
Yes, we do. Sara is a BookTokker, and she is talking to us about TikTok for authors and just kind of giving us a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the BookTok community and how she got started and what she looks for in books that she reads and reviews. It was a great interview.
Yeah, and she talks about how she prefers authors get in touch with her. I thought it was very interesting that both she mentioned using email and Maggie Marr mentioned that the previous interview.
Yes.
That, I think a lot of times people think, I'll just DM them.
Yes.
But, sometimes it's better just to send an email. For some reason, that tends to get lost a lot less. So, we talked about how she kind of makes some of her videos and, how to get started on BookTok. She got some tips for that. And it was really good. I enjoyed it. I'm not at all into BookTok. So that says a lot right there.
And I am.
Yeah. So what have you been doing this week?
Well, this week has been, I don't know. It's been hard. It's been a hard week. My sister who has cancer, has not been doing as well as we'd hoped. And she had to have another radiation treatment, which is very stressful for her. It's very claustrophobic, and she was very anxious. So my four sisters, my mom and dad, and her, the other four sisters, so all of us went to her radiation treatment. I mean, we travel in packs. It's like the Clampetts go to radiation.
Were there enough rooms enough seats in the waiting room?
There was. We made, and of course we had snacks while she's in there doing that. But it's just been hard. It's been a hard week, and I'm still here with my mom. I think just having me here has helped a little bit, and so I've done some work, but it's been kind of minimal. How about you?
Well, I'm actually getting some stuff done. I'm making progress on reading my draft.
Great.
A couple weeks ago, I was all excited. I was done. I'd started, and I was like, it's pretty good. I'm excited. And now I'm more in the middle, and I'm like, I don't know. It's like that roller coaster of this is. I don't know. Maybe it's okay. It's like one of those weeks where it's up and down. But so I've been working on that, and then also I recorded a couple of episodes for Mystery Books podcast, which will start coming out again soon. So I'm really enjoying that, and I think kind of the change of pace is really nice, and I'm enjoying doing something different. And then the other exciting thing is I'm doing a little bit on the Kickstarter idea that I have for a hardcover. So I've been working on getting a cover mock-up so I can show what it would look like. And it's going okay. So lots of different things going on. And so it's been good.
Well, we should get on with the interview with Sara because it's great. And I think people are going to learn a lot and really enjoy it.
Yeah. So here is Sara Thompson. All right. Well, today we are super excited to have Sara Thompson with us. How are you, Sara?
I'm great. How are you?
We are great. We are super excited to have you.
Yes, we're going to delve into TikTok, and it's something that a lot of authors are really interested in. So we're going to pick your brain and find out everything we can about it. But let me read your bio first before we get started. Sara is a 25-year-old avid romance reader from the Boston area. She started reading romance heavily only 2 years ago, but has very quickly fallen in love with the genre. She's a diehard for swoony romance with bantering characters. She skyrocketed to BookTok fame last year and keeps climbing. She posts about the books she's reading, books she loves, and much, much more. So I love good banter.
Yes.
It's my favorite thing.
It is. And I love Sarah's, not just her book stuff, her other just content is so funny and fun and really upbeat. I mean, that's what I really like about Sara, that like she just usually has just really positive, upbeat content, and that's always so great.
Thank you.
So how did you get started reviewing books? So you started reading books kind of the way I didn't start reading books until I was older. I mean, romance books until I was older. And it was sort of the same thing. Like I just immersed myself in them. So tell us how you went from reading to then reviewing.
So there was a trend going around that was you listed things you hated or disliked. And I don't have a lot of things that I heavily dislike, but there were a couple books that I had read that I really did not enjoy. So I posted about that. And I wasn't on BookTok yet. I wasn't getting BookTok videos on my For You page. It was just something that I was like, okay, like I'll just post this. And that's what that video put me on BookTok. So then my For You page started becoming other BookTokkers, and I was getting more and more recommendations for books. And so that's when I realized, like, oh, there's like an outlet for this. Like I can share the books that I'm reading, because I love talking about the books that I read, but no one in my personal life reads the same books as me. Like they're all like, my roommates are all readers, but they're reading like fantasy books and just not romance. And so in BookTok, I found the people that I could talk about romance novels with. Right. So it kind of just started as ironically talking about books that I didn't like, and now has morphed into books that I do actually enjoy.
Well, and just to clarify for our listeners, so BookTok is it's a subsection of TikTok. And, you know, I did a video that said, how the heck did I end up on Math Talk, MATH, but it sounded like meth because of my accent. And some people were like, what are you talking about? But I mean, there are just all kinds of subsets of TikTok, you know, specific interests. So BookTok is what Sara and I both are primarily concerned with. And if you're an author, that's probably where you should be concerned, you know, kind of spend your time too. So just to clarify that for our listeners that don't know. Yeah. And, go ahead, Sara.
Well, we wanted to
Sara Rosette.
This could be confusing, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we wanted to ask, what do you think is the appeal of TikTok? Why are people so compelled by it?
I think for me, at least, like it's so easy to film a video. Like before I was on TikTok, I am a content creator. I was blogging. And I liked blogging because I could blog anywhere. I could write a blog at work. I could write a blog in the bathroom stall at the bar. And then TikTok, it's even easier. Like I can't necessarily record a video anywhere, but it takes way less effort for me to speak into a camera than it does for me to sit down, write out my thoughts, edit the thoughts, make sure they're grammatically correct and all of that. And so as a creator, I think it's just like the ease of making videos, at least like the short form videos. And then as a user, I think the fact that your For You page never ends, you can scroll and scroll and scroll. And it's so tailored to you as a person. Like my For You page is like so tapped into like what I want, even though I don't really understand how it does that. But it's books, it's dating, it's Boston. Like I got a video the other day that was like a bodega that's right around the corner from my house. Like it doesn't know where I live, but somehow it does.
Yeah.
So I think like the algorithm and like how tailored it is to you, and just the fact that you can scroll for hours, like Twitter and Instagram, like you reach the end at some point, but TikTok, I don't know if you ever reached the end of the TikTok For You page.
No, it's kind of like the internet, just goes on forever. Yeah. I mean, I am embarrassed to say that I have lost hours, like literal hours. And I'll just say, I'm going to sit down and just look and see if I can find some trends or something. And 2 hours later, it's 1:00 in the morning and I'm going, what have I done? What have I done to myself?
Yeah. I think that's the frustrating thing about some of the other social media platforms is even though you say you want to follow certain people or see certain things, sometimes you don't see that at all. And so if they would just show us what we want, we would stay on there longer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and that's TikTok's whole thing. They want people to stay on the app longer. So if you can create content that keeps people on the app, then you get shown to those people. You know, you get shown more. And in some ways, I think TikTok's algorithm is a little friendlier than, say, some of the other algorithms we deal with as authors, like Amazon. And because it is very tailored to what you want. So I love that part too. And for some people, they're saying, oh, I could never make a video. I mean, that would be the hardest thing. But you don't have to speak. Like the best videos I've had is just me looking at the camera and kind of thinking about something and then writing content over it, like writing words over it. Those are my best videos, and I haven't said a word at all. So there's so many things you can do. It's really versatile, I think. So I like that part. So, Sara, do you have any aspirations to write your own romance?
Yes and no. I feel like I consider myself a writer in the sense that I write content and I'm writing blogs. I have not written fiction short of like in school when you had to write like a short story in like fifth and sixth grade. I would love to have the ability to sit down and like start and write a book. But I don't know if it would be any good, which I think is like, that's like my biggest hurdle, which I think I should just start. But I have like so many, like what I think would be good ideas for romance novels. I just have no idea where to start is essentially my my biggest hurdle.
Well, I can assure you, your first draft will not be good. It will stink. And you sort of have to, I didn't start writing until I was 50. And I tell people all the time, and even my husband will tell people, she could not have started even a day before that because the thought that first draft would stink would have been too much for me. I couldn't, but something happened on my 50th birthday and my field of F's went away, if you know what I mean. And I was like, oh, well, it can't hurt to try. So that's why I did it. So, but I get what you're saying. It's daunting. It's just daunting. The whole thing is. So,
maybe one day, but
you've got plenty of time.
Yeah, it's definitely not like my main goal. Like I'm a social media manager, like in my day job. So it's definitely not like a career aspiration of mine currently. But anything can happen. Anything can change.
That's right.
Very true. Very true. Well, what draws you to a book when you want to, we kind of want to pick your brain about like what pulls you into a book and how you decide what you're going to talk about. So for me, I almost exclusively read romance. Like there's very, very few times where I step outside of that genre. The times that I do, I don't end up liking the book. So I have stopped trying. There's some I'll read a memoir or like something nonfiction occasionally, but in terms of like fiction, like I'm almost exclusively reading romance or what I call romance adjacent books. So those books that are like, it's more so about the main character story, but there's a romance that still takes up like 50 to 60% of it. So for me, it has to be a romance. It most of the time I want it to be like a rom-com. Like I don't love a sad romance. I want a happy ending. I want to laugh. I want to like enjoy the characters and like the characters. Like I think there's a lot of romance books that are labeled as romance and the characters are just like god awful people and you're supposed to like root against them almost. And I don't want that. Like I want to like both characters. I want to fall in love with the main characters and want to be able to see myself as the woman. And so I think romance and some sort of like funny, happy like element. Like there can be like sad things to it. Like Beach Read is one of my favorite books. And I think that's like, it has a very heavy like grief tangent to it.
But at the end of the day, it's still they're bantering. It's a very funny book, and it has a happy ending. So those are kind of banter. I love characters that banter.
You love a good banter. Yeah,
love a good banter. So definitely like lean just way more happy than not is really my biggest requirement. And then from there, it's kind of more so about the writing than anything else, which is kind of, you can't necessarily tell until you start reading it. So, and if I'm standing in the bookstore, I'm just looking for romances that seem happy, essentially.
Yeah.
And every BookTokker is different. You know, some do like that more angsty. Some do like the darker romance stuff. You cracked me up at Christmas because, like, before Christmas, Sara, she kind of got sick of rom-coms and wanted something just a little different. And I read some Dirty Santa books. And
it was a lot of Dirty Santa books. Like a concerning amount of Dirty Santa books.
It's like we all binge at that time of year. Like either you're going that direction or you're going like the super sweet Hallmark movies. And it's like just so like we just overindulged that time of year.
One of them had popped up on my For You page, and they were all novellas, so they were all less than 100 pages.
Yeah.
And so I read the first one because I was like, oh, like whatever. And it was actually really, really good. And that, like, the romance itself was really good, even for a 100-page book. And then I just Googled Santa,
went down the rabbit hole,
put that into my Kindle, and I was like, okay, if you're less than 100 pages and you have Santa, I'm downloading it and I'm gonna read it.
That was so funny. I loved it. That's part of what I love about Sara's content too. She just cracks me up a lot of the time. So how do you decide which books to read and talk about? So I know we just talked about you like funny, but you mostly like rom-coms, but like, do you skew more towards traditional books or indie books, or there's, I know if Emily Henry puts anything out, you're there. And Tessa Bailey, you're there. So just like, how do you decide? And then how do you decide if you're going to talk about it or not?
So in terms of my books, I think I skew a little bit more traditional just because I grew up in a Barnes & Noble household. Right. Like my mom's a Barnes & Noble girl. And so if it's at Barnes & Noble, I'm going to see it. Right. I'm trying to get way more into indie authors and not smaller authors, but authors that aren't like the big traditional names like a Tessa Bailey. But other than that, it's kind of just like what piques my interest. I think that the term mood reader gets thrown around on BookTok a lot. And it's really just like up to what's my vibe at that right moment, like which book looks best at that moment in time. And usually it's just me looking at my shelf and okay, that one looks good. So it's definitely kind of like random almost, like what I can't stick to a strict order in terms of what I'm going to read.
Well, and I like that though, because it feels organic. It feels organic. And then because I haven't really seen you do a lot of bad reviews, but if you don't like the book, do you review it, or do you mostly just do the books you like?
So I mostly do the books I like. I try and review every book that I read. I haven't read any terrible books recently. I think part of that being I get recommended really good books. Right. Like the books that I'm reading are some of the better books. And for me, like, I try really hard not to put books down. Like a book has to be like god awful for me to put it down.
Right.
And by god awful, usually like something like racist or like something like actually bad is happening in the book. Otherwise I'm just like, I'm just going to power through it. Like, 'cause I also think most romances, if you're a good writer, you can write somewhat of a cohesive romance. I think, like, yes, there are definitely elements to romances that are hard to write, and they're not all going to be top tier 5-star books. But I think why I like the genre so much is that most authors that are getting published are going to be able to write at least a decent book. Right. And so I think that helps with my lack of bad reviews, because at least they're in my head, if I finish a book, it's 3 stars. It compelled me to finish it. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to stop. And I at least wanted to know what happened. So that 3-star being like, you're a good book. Like I would might not recommend you to everyone, but there's someone out there that I think is going to like it. Right. So that's, I think, the majority of my reviews, just because that I'm reading good books. Right. Which is great.
Right. Before we move on to the next question, I do want to ask you this, because it just, when you said that, just spurred something in me. So I've heard BookTokkers, when they rate like the steam in a book, you know, a couple of BookTokkers, they've rated steam in books that I would consider pretty steamy, like a 3. And I'm like, what? A 3? Then that means mine may not even be on the chart, even though mine is
a -1 or 0.
Yeah, I'm on the negative end. But I mean, I consider mine steamy, and other people have said that too. But I mean, when you compare it to some books, like I think one of Tessa's books was, somebody said a 3, and I was like, really? I would not say Tessa's books are 3 at all, and I love Tessa's books. And so yeah, but do you have a scale, or is it just kind of what hits you in the day, you know, or something?
So my steam ratings, I guess I do kind of have a scale. Like I would put most Tessa Bailey books at like a 4 or 5.
Me too. Yeah. Okay.
They're frequent, and they're well described.
Right.
I think there are definitely books that are even steamier, but then I think that leaves the romance genre and goes more into like erotica.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of BookTokkers and romance readers don't necessarily understand about romance. I think they lump the two together entirely, and I think they're two very different genres.
Yes.
And so I think for me, like steam wise, like I have, I guess, in my head a rating. I don't know if I could put it to paper, like, or verbalize it well, but I think I definitely have a steam rating. With all the chili pepper emojis.
Yes.
And then my star ratings, a 1 or a 2 means I did not finish it. And it was like either a 1 basically means it was god awful. I'm not recommending this to anyone. You should not read this. This should not have been published. I don't know how this got published.
Right.
A 2 is okay. I didn't finish it. I guess it's not that bad. I can see maybe a couple people liking this, but I'm not going to recommend it. Right. A 3 is I finished it. I didn't love it. There's definitely people that would like it. It's just not my favorite. And then 4s and 5s are like, I really enjoyed this. A 4 like has just like, I would change maybe a couple things, or like there was maybe like the like conflict wasn't that great or well written.
Right.
But like a 5 is like a perfect book. I wouldn't change it. I would recommend it from the rooftops to everyone.
Right.
Well, I think that goes to show how difficult it is with ratings, because like one person's 3 may be another person's 5. And I've heard people say, you know, they'll only give maybe 1 or 2 5-star reviews a year, because like in their mind, there's just not that many books that are just like top level. And then other people are like, you know, a little more generous with their 5 stars.
I feel like they're not reading the right books, if you ask me, because there are some great books.
I give out 5 stars like it's candy. Like, and sometimes I look back and I'm like, ooh, maybe that wasn't a 5-star book. But when I finish it, I'm like, holy crap, that was so good. It gets 5 stars.
If you're happy.
Because that is, I think for me, just as a reader, I feel like that's that moment. Like that moment when you close that book, that feeling you get. First of all, that's what I always strive to give my audience. But more than that, that's what I want. And, you know, yes, were there some typos or, you know, a couple of weird things? Maybe, but it still did not overshadow that feeling that I got at the end. And that's, you know, and that's because that's the payoff of everything that's built up. So I agree. I think that's I think that's a lot of readers, though. I think a lot of readers look for that.
I think there's I have 5-star books in 2 categories in my head. There's 5-star books that I loved in the moment and probably will never read again. And then there's 5-star books that I'm going to read and reread and reread and reread, like every chance I can get.
And the European version. And
I will read Beach Read any chance I can get.
I love Beach Read. I loved it. And I loved People We Meet on Vacation too. I love that just the whole thing between them was so fun. So fun.
So good.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah. Well, getting back to like authors approaching TikTokers. So we were curious, do you prefer it when authors reach out to you, or would you rather just find books on your own?
I think a combination of the two. I get very overwhelmed with like how many books I have to read. Like you guys can see on my bookshelf.
I got a lot of books back there.
Very full. And so
her TBR is probably way longer.
Oh,
this whole top shelf is unread books.
Oh my goodness.
And so I think with authors, I guess with traditional authors, don't get me wrong. I love when they reach out to me, like a book that I know is going to be a hit, like, and they want me to have an arc or they want me to read it. I am so incredibly flattered, but right now I'm tending to say no to them just because I know I'll be able to get the book later. And I know even before I get that email, I've heard of the book. I know it's coming out. I know when it's going to come out. I know I'm going to enjoy it. But then indie authors, I love when they reach out to me. Like, Jami, you're someone that I would not have found other than TikTok. Like, and I love that I have your book and like we get to do this. Like, I would not have done that without TikTok. And so like in that sense, like I do love when authors reach out to me because I'm finding authors and I'm finding like not even just books to read, but like people that I can interact with and like be friends with on the internet, which is really cool.
I always love it when Sara likes one of my videos or something. It always goes, oh. It's so funny because, there are just some people that will just go through and like, but there are other people, if they liked it, they watched it and they really did like it. And so, so I always love that. But in terms of the art things, because I think for BookTokkers like you, even just talking about being excited about that book is enough. That's a lot of promotion for that trad book. You don't have to read it and talk about it for 6 months. You could just talk about it and be like, look what I got, when it comes out. And I think that gives that book a ton of promotion for BookTokkers like you, because you have such a large audience and people do listen to your recommendations and they want to know what you're reading. Also, because you make it fun. I mean,
it's so crazy to me that people will comment and tell me, I read Tessa Bailey's new book because of you. I read Beach Read because of you. I read the Brown Sisters trilogy because of you. And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
wow,
you have influence.
I have influence.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, isn't it? Yeah.
It's kind of scary because I'm like, and while the books that I'm recommending, I fully stand by and like enjoy them in my own right, knowing that other people may not enjoy them. But the idea that like I'm sitting here telling you to read a book because I thought it was 5 stars and then they read it is kind of terrifying to me because I'm like, what if they don't like it? What if they think I'm crazy for liking this book? But most of the books I'm recommending, people don't think I'm crazy for liking.
No,
so
they don't.
Basically, you're sharing what you liked about it, and people who have that same aesthetic or likes and dislikes, they trust you, and so that's a good match.
What I tell people all the time, my current readers are probably not on TikTok, but new readers are on TikTok. So that's why I'm on TikTok. But I think like for Talia Hibbert, am I saying that right, Talia?
I believe it's Talia Hibbert. Yeah.
Hibbert. Like her books were popular, but I think that you've helped make them very popular on TikTok because you love those books. And I then see people, talking about them later that I know follow you. And so I'm like, You know what? That's what I love. I mean, even though Talia, she's hybrid, she's indie and traditionally published. I just love that though, that books that may not have gotten this broad audience are getting that because of TikTok, and just love things like that. So I think that you guys are doing good work, in my opinion. That's just me.
We love it. Keep it up.
Yeah. So I asked you this about, like, if you get an arc from a trad publisher and you don't love it, do you let them know, like, in advance? I mean, like an indie author, that's kind of a different thing, but like a trad, do you let them know in advance, or do you?
So thankfully, I haven't gotten an arc that I haven't disliked. I think from the traditional authors, all the arcs I've gotten, I think I've given 5 stars.
Yeah. Those are good books.
I give them out like candy, so I don't, maybe my 5 stars is not the same as someone else's 5 stars, but to me, I really enjoyed them. But when I get an arc, I do think about that. Like, I don't really know how I would approach it because I haven't had to do it yet, but it is something that I think about when accepting an arc. Like, is this someone that I am going to tell beforehand that I didn't like this book? And is this someone who I'm going to post about and say, I got an arc, I didn't love it, but here's why you would like it? Am I just going to say I didn't like it? So that does kind of go through my head when I get arcs.
Yeah, because you're going into it blind, right? I mean, unless you've read the author before, you just say, yes, I'll take the book.
Even if you've read the author before, it could just be an off book. I mean, you know, it could just be a book that doesn't hit. You know?
I go into most books blind.
Probably good.
I will read like the first like couple sentences, like paragraph of the back like summary, and we'll either decide to read it from there or not. I go into books so blind that when I was reading Beach Read, I got to like the part about the cults.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my God, there's cults in this. And then said something to one of my friends, and she took the book and like read the back of the book, and she was like, it literally says that on the back of the book.
But at the bottom of the thing.
And I was like, oh, I didn't get that part.
Well, as a mystery reader, I understand that because a lot of the times they'll give away important things in the blurb. And so a lot of times I'll just read just a little bit of it and I stop because I'm like, I don't want to be spoiled.
Yeah.
So I totally get that.
Some blurbs just, and with romances, I guess, I mean, there are things you can definitely spoil within romances, but you know, you assume you're getting a happy ending.
Yeah.
But the blurb sometimes give away like way too much information. And I'm like, I don't need to know all that. I kind of just want to know, how do they know each other? How do they meet? Do they hate each other? Do they like each other? What will ensue?
Are you a cliffhanger? Are you a cliffhanger girl or no cliffhangers? Or does it depend?
I think it depends. I think some cliffhangers I get like really into. Like there are certain books where like it'll end on a cliffhanger or a chapter will end on a cliffhanger, and I'm like, oh, now I have to keep going, like and keep going. And then other books, I think, even if there isn't a cliffhanger, like it'll keep you going. Like it's just kind of normal conversation almost, and then it still will keep me engaged. Right. So I think I'm for either. I think
good.
As long as it's well written, I'm into it.
You heard it here, folks. So, tell us some common mistake authors make when they reach out to you or other BookTokkers that you've heard about.
I don't know if I know of any like major mistakes. I personally prefer when people email me. I will get a lot of DMs. So not on my Instagram's linked in my TikTok, and so I don't receive DMs on TikTok. I'll get DMs on Instagram, and I have 2 Instagram accounts. I have like the public facing Bookstagram, and now it's a Bookstagram account, and then I have a personal account that's like locked. Like I don't let anyone that doesn't know me in my personal life follow that. But I'm mostly I'm not very good at my Bookstagram yet. I don't know how to do it, so I'm not on it that frequently. So I will get DMs that are like weeks and weeks and weeks old, and I'm like, oh, sorry, like, is this too late? Like I missed this, I'm so sorry. And it goes to my message requests as opposed to like just getting a notification for it.
And sometimes I don't check those, I forget.
I know. Me too.
or if I open it and then I don't remember to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But my email, like I have, but I guess it's a book email, but like my content creator email, is all in the same mail app on my phone. So I check my email every day. Mm-hmm. So I'm pro email over a message, and my email is linked like 4 times on my social medias. Yeah. So I think that's like the only like big mistake. Mm-hmm. And that's not even that big. That's just, I might not respond to you if you DM me as opposed to email me.
Right.
Because you might not see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if someone wants to become a BookTokker, what do you suggest that they would do?
I suggest just starting and going.
Just try it.
Just try it. It's like a lot easier than it looks like. I'm a social media manager in my day job, so I have a background knowledge of like the workings of social media and how to create content, but I don't plan any of my content for TikTok because it starts to feel too much like work. And so I kind of just willy-nilly go. You'll see, like, if I'm posting, they'll probably post like maybe 10 a day some days. And it's probably just because my makeup looks good. And so I'm like, okay, well, let me find a trend I can do. Let me find a book I can talk about.
Yeah.
Let me do a reading update. And I think Book Talk really leads itself to like gaining followers if you're not like trying.
If you're trying too hard, it may be a little off-putting.
Yeah. Because I think like, and Book Talk, I think is also like way more of a community than like other like niche TikTok groups. Like I have a lot of like, I guess I would call them friends, like people that I interact with frequently, that don't have nearly as many followers as me, but because they post about the same books as I do, like I follow them and interact with them. And in my head, they're Book Talk famous, even though they don't have like there's a couple people I follow, they have like a couple hundred followers. And I'm like, oh yeah, like that person's like famous. And people are like, I literally never heard of that person in my life. I'm like, oh, well, they're all over my For You page because I like them and they're a nice person. Right. So I think my biggest like recommendation is just start, just try it. Just don't try and copy what other people are doing in the sense of don't be inauthentic to yourself. Like if you're someone who is better at talking to the camera than doing trends, talk to the camera. Like I'm much better at just talking about a book than I am than like trying to come up with like a trending song and like doing stuff like that. Like when I try and follow like book talk trends, I always end up using the same 2 books because they're the only books that I can ever think of.
Right.
So, but I think people lead, like those ones do well engagement wise, but then I think people end up liking, a smaller group of people like me talking way more than the large group of people just likes my like trending videos. So I try to stick to that, like, because I think that's a little bit more authentic to like who I am as a person.
Yeah. And I do think that's I think that's individual to each person, because other book talkers that I do follow, some of them are a little more slick because they've sat down, they know what they're going to say, they're in front of their bookshelf, and everything. So sometimes you're in bed and you're doing TikToks, which those are my favorite, by the way.
I'm almost exclusively in my bed.
And but I think it's so authentic, and when you are inauthentic, then that comes across, and I think that's important. So you mentioned Instagram. Do you see a big difference between TikTok and Instagram? I mean, are they're 2 different animals?
Yeah, I think I used to be really into Instagram. It's just gotten so much harder to reach who you want to reach. Yeah. Like the people that follow you aren't even seeing your content.
Yeah.
So I'll post on Instagram, like I post a lot of stories. And because those are easier to post and they're way easier for people to see. Whereas TikTok, I post a lot more like actual content. I also have not a single clue how to take like a pretty and aesthetic book picture. I like, if you look at like some people's bookstagrams, there's like, they look like they had professional photo shoots for their books.
Right.
And I'm over here, I'm like, how do I hold it? How do I angle it so there's no shadow? What lighting do I need? Like, and so I've been trying like different areas because I'm usually in my room too. Like my books that's where they live. So they don't really go anywhere else. So I've been trying to like take more pictures for Instagram, but it has not been working the way I want it to. So it's kind of like my second thing that I do. Like TikTok's definitely first.
Yeah. Have you used the stories on TikTok yet?
I have, and I actually really like them. My one gripe is that you don't get notifications if someone comments on it.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
So like I've been posting stories as like the videos that I know aren't going to do well as like actual videos, or alternatively the videos that I would set to private like the next morning anyways. So like I talk a lot about my dating life.
Yes.
So most of the time I'll post a video about my dating life and then set it to private the next morning. But now I've just been putting those to stories because they just go away. But I have a couple that I posted like this weekend because I went to a bookstore in Boston, like an indie bookstore, and I posted I tried to vlog it and it did not go well. So I posted the failed vlog on my stories and a bunch of people commented on it, but I didn't get any notification that anyone commented on it. So I didn't see them. And then they went away and it was a disaster.
That's frustrating.
So now I know to just check them every so often.
Yeah.
But pro tip, if you are posting TikTok stories, you don't get notifications revolving them.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for being here. Tell everyone where they can find you and, all your stuff, and we'll put your information in our show notes too.
Of course. So on TikTok, which is mostly where I'm at, you can find me at Sara_Thompson 25. It's Sara with an H, Thompson also with an H in there. THOMPSON. People know how to spell Thompson, but for some reason I always feel the need to spell it out for them. And then if you are on Instagram and want to follow me on Instagram, it's biracial booty. And then that's it, I guess. Those are the two main things. You can follow me on Twitter, but I just post my world score. I don't really tweet about anything.
Yeah, we don't talk about Twitter very much. It doesn't seem to be that impactful for authors. So,
it's kind of like I love Twitter. I love scrolling through Twitter, but it's very hard to like gain a following on.
Yeah. It's like the modern day press release is what I think it is. So
it's kind of dying out.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, we will have all those links in the show notes, and they will be at wishidknownthenpodcast.com. And thanks to Alexa Larberg for editing and producing the podcast, and to Adriel Wiggins for doing the admin. We will see everybody next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.